I used to do lots of things.
I used to do things and I'd say things and Jesus I was evil. Take things and break things and Jesus I was evil. I never shook, baby.
Do Italians have a Pride Month at all? Or do you guys?
Every month is Pride Month for Italians. We have so much culture.
That's true. Yeah. Well, I really want you guys to have like a specific, but not many people know that. I want everyone to be like, "Hey, this is Italian month."
Dude, there was this time, and I feel like the early 2000s, mid 2000s, where it was kind of like you had the Desperate Housewives of New Jersey, you had Growing Up Gotti, you had Jersey Shore, Sopranos was still going on. Like, it was Italian American overload.
Yeah. It was a beautiful time.
It was a beautiful time. This was our golden age.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like
the Renaissance, man.
I feel like, yeah. Talk about the 14, the 1400, the 15th century, and the beginning of the 21st century. Really, when Italians peaked.
Oh yeah,
come and go. Roman Empire. Yeah, so like 117 is considered the height of the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
Let's say 1450. I don't know when all those guys were alive exactly. Yeah. 2006.
Right.
That was the Italian American heyday.
Yeah. Well, also you had, in the early 70s, you had that one mobster who was trying to start like the the Italian version of the Anti-Defamation League, but for like Italians though.
Yeah, because he thought it was.
It had to do with The Godfather too.
It was anti-Italian to show everyone in the mafia, and then he was in the mafia.
I know. Yeah,
it was amazing. It was incredible.
I like that era because it's like everybody knew that he had like all of these ties to like organized crime, but it was just like he just had just enough crooked police officers to like bury the evidence, but it's like everybody knew, like, but he's like, we Italians deserve respect too. It's like,
the kind of I don't know if every culture does this, but the like the whitewashing of the mob is really a thing of beauty. Like my dad was always like, what's the big deal? There was like prostitution and gambling. It's like, yeah, it was also like murder and pushing drugs, and a lot of that gets lost also. And some of them did, like if you watch Sopranos and stuff, like they did want to, some of it stay out of the drug trade. But a lot of it was just like thuggery, just like typical, like beating up truck drivers and taking their shit. And so some of it was kind of the smoke-filled rooms of organized crime that is part of the imagination. Like there's definitely truth to that. Sure. Fixing sporting events, of course. Boxing was big, like heyday boxing. Baseball, even though that was more the Jewish mob, I think, who fixed the World Series. But like, they also just did like the typical crime that we don't like.
They deserve just as much respect as any other, as like, Mexican cartels, like Mexican, like they get all the attention these days. It's like, no, we need to carve out a space in the culture for these.
They do feel the Mexican cartels and the Russians always felt a little more evil.
Yeah.
Like the mob, they weren't cutting people's heads off, I don't think.
Slaughtering families and shit.
Yeah. I mean, there was some of that.
Sure.
But it seemed a little more tame.
There's a little more honor, I think, with the Italian mobs. We're seeing with like Mexican cartels, it's just like, we're gonna slaughter your whole village sort of shit because you looked at us wrong.
Yeah, exactly. The Russian mob too was always like I was real into mob stuff back then, and it felt like the Russians always just took it too far.
Yeah.
It's like take it easy.
But
no, we deserve our own month. You're right.
Yeah. With Olive Garden shutting down, a few years back, it's like, things.
What do you mean Olive Garden shutting down?
Oh yeah, they've been closing down a bunch of locations.
Have they been?
Yeah, I know. It's a real blow to your culture. I know. It's But I know. So anyway, I'm supportive of Italians. So
we know, we know your support. We appreciate that. The New Jersey Italian California Chicano Alliance.
What's funny because all my Mexican friends, they're all like, if I wasn't Mexican, I would be Italian. I think exactly.
Like you
it's
just get
they're
to
Catholic.
decide.
They're Catholic. They got big ass families. Like there's enough like overlap.
Yeah, it's like Italy kind of is the Latin America of Europe.
Yeah.
Kind of. Greeks kind of get that too. They're like the more, I don't know, feta fed.
There's a little bit of like this like element of we're poor but we're happy. We're poor and we can celebrate.
Yeah, definitely. Over there, it's like same face, same. Like Spaniards, Italians, and Greeks are all like united. We're like we are the kind of triumvirate of the Mediterranean. Not that they're the only. There are a lot of Mediterranean countries, but we're like the proud triumph. Like all very proud of their cultures. I think Mexico. I could see that too. Like I think there's a lot of overlap there with the like immigrant populations. I just was at the Transit Museum in the city. Like Italians built New York City. And Black people and Irish, but the Italians, that just when all that was going on, who were the new immigrants? It was the Italians. Like they were the cheap labor. And Blacks, of course, were cheap labor, and Irish were getting a little bit ahead. Irish, especially because they really ingratiated themselves into government more because I guess like more English speaking and generally whiter, even though people come in all different shades. And the Irish, they had a huge impact on policing. So the Italian, like that was one thing I also learned, not to go off the whole like Italian history, Italians Americans history here, but like
I don't like Italians that much. We don't know.
Well, the last thing, like in Louisiana is a big Italian population, especially
I didn't know that.
Sicilian, like New Orleans at one point had the largest Italian population in America for like before the Philly and New York and Boston. And they were specifically Sicilian, and a lot of them came over and they went and worked in the fields with the free blacks, and they were like, well, we don't care, like we're working, like because to the whites there, they're like, you don't do that, like we would never work side by side with them, but for them, they're like, what are you talking about, like this is work. So that's where like Guinea comes from, that slur against Italians, is because their hair had like the kind of curliness that a lot of Black people had.
Oh right. Yeah, I'm just recalling that speech from True Romance. Remember?
Yeah, I've seen that. What was the speech?
It was well, I can't say because there are a lot of racial slurs in it, but it was
let him rip.
Okay, here we go. No, it was Dennis Hopper played the dad of Christian Slater, and what's his face? Who's that? Christopher Walken was like, he's the mob guy. And so he's interrogating Dennis Hopper's character.
Like in a trailer or something.
So Dennis Hopper goes off on this crazy. He's just kind of stalling for time, but he's making it because he knows he's going to die. But he's like, I'm just going to stall and just fuck with these guys. So he starts going on this long thing about how Sicilians descended from like Sicilians are the same as Black people because they came from the Moors or something like. And he's going on this long but he's just kind of making shit up. But of course he's using like the N-word, and he's using it's just kind of like, I'm gonna die, so I'm gonna just go for it. So
let it all out. Well, no, Sicily is a really cool. As much as I rip on Sicily, my people are not Sicilian, but as much as I rip on, it's a very cool like cross cultural island that had like Greek speaking Byzantines and a Greek population. It had like Norman Catholics. It had, so you had like these French speaking Norman Catholics who learned Arabic to like trade with you had Arabs there. You had like all the like obviously Italic Roman Italians, and it's like this really, and had all this really unique architecture that was like part Norman, part Moorish, part like Greek, Byzantine, like all this stuff. And it's a very cool place in terms of like anthropologically. It's like one of the really interesting parts of Southern Europe.
No, is that a lollipop you're consuming?
What are you talking about?
In your left hand, is that a lollipop?
No, it's a pen.
Oh, it looked like a Tootsie Pop or something.
Yeah, no, it's a dinosaur pen.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Did you see recently a study came out that said children who are obsessed with dinosaurs are more intelligent?
Hell yeah. I believe that.
I was obsessed with dinosaurs as a kid.
Hell yeah,
Big
me
deal.
too, buddy.
Whatever. I wanted to
How
be a
could you
dinosaur.
not? I mean, it's like when Jurassic Park, when the Jurassic Park movies came out in the 90s. Like hell
Yeah,
yeah.
90s kids and dinosaurs. I think that was a part of it. I had like a gigantic wood crate of dinosaurs.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hell
My
yeah.
stash. I don't know what happened to that. My parents moved and I think I left behind.
Hopefully for future civilizations to dig up.
That's right. All right.
Well, speaking of trying to come with a good segue for the next
children.
That's right. Speaking of children,
I watched Sound of Freedom because we talked about it. We talked like typical podcast. We like talked about the talkings about something. So like the discourse, right? As they say, back episode 88, the William Friedkin episode.
Yeah.
I watched Sound of Freedom. It was very okay.
Okay.
It was totally decent. Mm-hmm. Underwhelming in many different ways. Not so here's what it's not. It's not Christian propaganda. It's not a QAnon conspiracy. Like I was honestly looking forward to more of that just because like it'd be more interesting, not necessarily good. Yeah. It was very much like a typical action thriller with somewhat of like this shit's going on. Yeah. Now it's apparently embellished. The guy it's based off of is, I think, himself a sexual predator. Allegedly. I'm going to say that for the lawyers. Allegedly. I'm going to pull it up here. Oh, that's not it. So it's not like it feels like one of those movies that honestly the critics as like those criticizing it did themselves a huge disservice because I feel like they just Streisand affected the shit out of it. Yeah. Like this movie is not at all like if you're gonna call something Christian propaganda because the guy has a nuclear family and like 6 kids and like they mention God maybe a couple times, like it's in fucking South America and Latin America. Yeah, like it's like Central South America. Yeah, he like I thought this was gonna be they're stopping to pray nonstop. They're like kissing crosses and like it's none of that. Right. Like, I've seen like overtly Christian movies. They usually are not good. Right. They're usually very bad and boring and banal.
Kirk Cameron type shit.
Yeah, I guess. Like this was not that. I think so. Part of it. One, this movie made $250 million.
That's pretty big. That's pretty.
That's for what this is. Yeah. That's gigantic. I forget what the budget was. Like maybe 14 million or 4. Like some of the 4, maybe 40 or 14. Yeah. Like. That is, which just shows that there's a big part of this country and probably the global, like the international audience that doesn't necessarily need like overtly what you call like conservative movies, just something that you're not being like pandered to or like criticized. Like the person they don't always have to hate America. Not every couple needs to be like non-binary and talking about feminism. Like there's a lot of people out there who would just want to see like a regular movie that I mean this movie is if you look at a lot of the writers director like they're all Spanish names. Caviezel, what's his first name?
Jim, I think.
Jim Caviezel is the lead. He plays a guy, this real guy who I don't know exactly what he is. I think he's like an activist or something, a conservative activist, or was part of the government finding pedos. You know, to be honest, the movie it's a little long. There's kind of two big moments where they probably just gonna cut the second one, like the whole kind of secondary plot, which apparently is the least factually accurate, which makes it like even worse. Like, why is this even in here? To me, it's supposed to inject action into the movie, which I don't know why. Like the movie's been out for a while. It's like he kind of goes solo to rescue this girl from like deep in the jungle of Colombia, where like the government doesn't even control. Right, they're like I don't know. Communists or whatever, like human traffickers. He goes Leroy Jenkins, and it's like it's not even that action packed, which makes it seem like it's like I appreciate them trying to be realistic, but if also this didn't happen, why not go harder?
Right.
Really, the coolest part of the movie is this whole Argo like fake, you know how in Argo they make this whole fake movie to get like they do something similar where they stage something, make a fake, basically Epstein fuck island to catch predators, but they have to pretend to be predators themselves, and like that should have been the whole movie, and that like the machinations of creating that, and then like have because apparently that shit happened like much more, the government raiding it and all these kids being taken out. But this movie also isn't at all is like, I thought this was going to end with like the president of the United States with like a little boy in his lap or something. Like, no, it's not. It's none of that.
Right.
It's actually way more grounded than I thought it was going to be.
Right.
It's more grounded than real fucking life, where we have an island with the like photographs of the most powerful people on the planet going to the pedophile island. Yeah. Members of the royal family, ex-presidents, CEOs, bankers, scientists, like everyone. And he like, so that really happened. Right. And none of that is in this movie. So to me, the idiot critics, like usual, the fucking establishment, you know, New York Times, LA Times, Vanity Fair types, they just pushed Red District viewers into the cinemas and gave it and like, so basically, you know how I give rating? I give it like a 67. It's good. Like, it's fine. It's a fine movie. It's more something you should probably watch just to say you did. Yeah. And because it was such a big part of the discourse. But this is honestly a recipe for, we've been talking about this for years, Joe, you and I. We've been talking about like not even necessarily conservative like studios, but things that are just like, I guess, more traditional and I don't know, like having some religious imagery, having you know, the good, like America actually be the good guys, and like the bad guys actually are the bad guys. Human traffickers from South America, like they're not good guys. Right. There are good guys down there who are helping. Sure. But, like, it's not like a white savior thing. Like there are lots of it's weird because it's like a lot of the kids come from Central America, then they go to South America to come all the way to like North America. Like it's kind of weird like that. Yeah. A lot of them come from like Honduras and that area, Honduras, El Salvador, but they end up in Colombia. So that's where a lot of the action takes place. I don't know, man. Like I was honestly kind of hoping for something a little more batshit. Yeah. But it wasn't. It just.
Yeah. It always cracks me up when this sort of thing happens where it's like, these idiot, as you call them, idiot critics, or we should just call them like critiots or something. Like, it's just like, where it's like, it's like, you know, this is not a controversial movie. You guys made it controversial. The content of the movie would, if it was made by anybody else, or if it was made by a major studio, it would not be this cultural bombshell. You guys are the ones who exaggerated the shit out of this. And it's
so,
like, so
yeah, no, go ahead, finish. I was thinking of a quote. I was thinking of this quote that I love. It's from Dune, and it's actually the quote in the beginning of my Six Harlots series. It's, "What do you despise by this are you truly known?" And it's like, if you guys are going to make like these people, the ones who are putting their life on the line to save brown children in South America, and who, yes, wear a crucifix around their neck because they're Christians, like, or if these are the people who are the cranks, like, look in the mirror, man. Like, you're on the wrong side of it. Yeah. Like, and some of the reviews are, of course, they have to throat clear. It's like, assuming you're not a right-wing conspiracy theorist like me, this movie is XYZ, and they're actually positive reviews from some of these like establishment publications. But it's like, man, I think this got Streisand affected really to the movie's benefit.
Right. Yeah, it's like the sort of like I refer to it as like 6 degrees of bigotry, or 6 degrees of offense, where it's like it's like something that on its own is not particularly problematic, but it's like, how can we find a way to connect it to something that is problematic? And it's like, okay, well, Jim Caviezel, you know, the actor, he you know, I guess he kind of dabbles in QAnon conspiracy theory stuff, and you know, there are some right-wing conspiracies that do, you know, have to do with you know, major people in power trafficking, where it's like, okay, yeah, but the movie itself is not that. it's you're finding ways to connect it to something that is problematic. But it's like, yeah, on its own, it's fine. Like, there's nothing problematic.
It's not that at all. Like, I honestly thought that, I'm like, okay, when are they gonna like close in on a pizza place with like children locked in the basement? Like, I swear, I fucking swear, dude. I was like, what? Like, when is this gonna turn?
Right.
When is this gonna turn from like typical, Latino guys and wife beaters with AK-47s, like mushing mushing children into like crates? Like, when is that going to turn into some white-haired politician in DC like visiting? It never does.
Right.
Like, so I don't get where I think it's people are just so quick on both sides, but here definitely on the left to just label shit as like Christian, like people saying it's Christian. Like one of my actually movie podcasts I loved, but stopped about a month or two ago, put out, they put out small reviews and on their Instagram, and one of them's like Sound of Freedom, like this, like they actually like the movie more than I did, and they're like, this movie, everything aside, is like a good movie, sir, whatever. And some of the comments were like, why are you guys reviewing this? This is Christian propaganda. It's like, no, it's not at all.
Right.
Like I've seen Christian propaganda, and it usually makes really bad art and bad movies. Doesn't mean Christian movies can't be good or Christian art. Of course, a lot of the greatest art in humankind is Christian art coming from the Renaissance and modern day. But like, this is just not that at all.
Or like in this case where it sounds like, the religious elements are more incidental rather than like the main subject of the movie, where it's like, it just happened to be that the protagonists were religious or something like that. Where it's like, that's just, we were just being factually accurate with that. Like, one of my favorite comedies is Nacho Libre with Jack Black. And like,
it's so funny for you to say that, because like so many other people like that would not fly today.
I know, a white guy pretending to be Mexican. This one, every Mexican I know who's seen that movie fucking loves that movie. Like, nobody, like,
I feel like that's typical.
I know, no, exactly. But it's like, that movie is like, it's very heavily Catholic. But like, I'm not as a non-religious person, I'm not bothered by it at all. It's like, the protagonist happens to be at a monastery. So what? I don't care. Like,
but, get going out of my face.
Such a quotable movie.
Such a good line. But what you're talking about, how like the Mexicans, don't find offensive, is the same thing. This could be selective editing, of course, but there's like some, right winger with a microphone going up to kids on campus. It might have been UC Berkeley or UCLA or something, or maybe somewhere in New York. I don't know. But they're going up to, he's wearing a sombrero and he's white. He's like not Mexican white, like non-Hispanic white, as they would say. He's like, does this offend you? And of course all the students are like, I find that very offensive. Like, you shouldn't be wearing that. And then he goes up to just like Latino guys, and they're like,
who could barely speak English.
They're like, no, I like it.
Good.
Like, what do you mean? Like, I like that. And I think there can be a fine line between like caricaturing a culture and like appreciating it, even if that could be like, I don't know. I think intent is a big part of that too. But I always, for instance, I'm not a big reaction video guy. I know a lot of, especially like younger Gen Z likes a lot of that. But there is something when it's like watching, I don't know, how do you put this? Like, let's say a black guy who would you would not think likes heavy metal, right? Like, if you just saw him, you're probably assuming he's not listening to Iron Maiden or something like that. Just the way he dresses and what's decorating his room. But he does like a reaction video to an Iron Maiden song, and he loves it. And like, I like that. Like, I think that's cool. And I actually got kind of called out on this once, not in a friendly way, but one of my best friends growing up was like a Black Dominican guy. Rodolfo, if you're out there, miss you, buddy. And whenever we would, there weren't a lot of like black guys at our school. Like, it was definitely a small minority. And he's one of my best friends. And so he was around like quote unquote white culture a lot. And so a lot of like rock music and alternative music and that. But I would, for just naturally, just trying to be a friend, I would always point out, it'd be like, oh, the guitarist in this band, he's actually black, or the lead singer here, like Killswitch Engage, Howard, like he's actually black, or Tom Morello, like and I'd always point that out. One time he called me out, he's like, hey, like, you don't have to like tell me every time there's like a black guy, right? Like, I'm okay with that. I'm like, oh shit, like I didn't even really, and he wasn't like mad, he wasn't like no, he was like, oh, you don't have to do that, like it's okay. And I was like, oh, like, okay, cool. Like, I'm just trying to be like, I'm naturally trying to be inclusive, but it's like, oh no, that's okay. Like, it's cool. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
thanks, man. Like I appreciate it, but you don't have to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But well, that's a good segue to our next subject, heavy metal. Unless is there anything else you want to talk about? Sound of
No.
Freedom?
Oh yeah, the most unrealistic part of that movie is that they make a point of saying, so like basically he wants to go rogue and like, like usual, like typical. It's you had a mission, you either like you accomplished it, but you like or you didn't, and you want to do more, and your boss is like, no, get home. Like he's like, no, I'm doing this. Like, okay, but then you're done. He's like, I don't care. Like basically, I'm giving up everything to go do this, and if I fail, I fail. And he's like, your pension, like, and then they make a point of showing this guy's family, Jim Caviezel's family, and it's like 6 kids with a wife, in the suburbs or something. Maybe that, like, of course, code's conservative, but he's like, your pension hasn't vested yet. Basically, wait until that. And he's like, no. I'm like, are you out of your mind? Like, your pension has invested, and you're gonna go into the fucking Amazon where there are like drug lords and human traffickers. And if you die, your like housewife and your 6 kids are gonna have nothing. Like, to me, that was the most unrealistic part of this movie. Dude, get the fuck back to rescue some like these children who you don't know. Like another app, like south of the equator. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Fuck my family, man. I'm just gonna help some strangers.
It's like, what the fuck? Like, no, I have to go do this. Like, no, you don't. Get your ass back to Utah or whatever.
Cool. So you give it
I give it a 67. So that's like on the star scale. It's like 3.5. It's passing. It's above a 60. It's fine. Like it's fine. It's a good movie.
Serviceable action thriller.
Sure. Yeah. In fact, like some of the criticisms of it are like, it's kind of boring, which is crazy to think. Like, and it drags. It's too long. They should have cut it. It's like over I think it's like 2 hours and 20 minutes. Should have cut out the whole second, like kind of not back half, like that whole extra like side quest he does.
Right.
And just focus on that first part. I think it would have been a much better movie.
Cool, man. Well, speaking of cutting, so Machine Gun Kelly,
nice.
I don't even know what I don't know what kind of music he makes. Do you?
Yeah, I actually like Machine Gun Kelly. I know a lot of people don't.
Like genres, rock.
So now, well, that's his criticism, is that he was just like rap.
Okay.
Just like his song was actually one of my songs in college, Wild Boy. That was like one of my top songs when I was in college, which speaks to my actions. And now but then he did like a whole, I don't know if glow up's the right word, because it's not like he was ugly, but a whole just like vibe shifts, genre shift to like pop punk, because like Travis Barker. So because look, I think he's very good looking. He's like the hair, he's got like a bunch of tattoos. He's tall, he's good looking. Like there's a star there. There's like a rock star there. He just grew up in like East Cleveland. There's like a rap guy. And of course, rap's the biggest music now. But I think Travis Barker's like, look, if you can, like, you're a talented musician, if you do this shift, like you could enter this whole other population. And I guess he did, for I don't know why. I'm not like an expert on it, but that was a big thing. And I know a lot of rock people don't like it. It's like, this isn't like, you're a rap guy, you're not a rock guy. Right. I like some of his music. I like pop punk. I like his style. I think he's like, I actually like him as an actor. I think he's really funny. Like the one scene he's in King of Staten Island. He's a bigger part in Bird Box. I think he's fine. I don't know. I like MGK.
Okay. I know almost nothing about him, so I can't say one way or another about him, but I will defend him in this controversy. It has to do with cutting, because so he's got a signature guitar with Schecter guitars. It is in the shape of a giant razor blade, like one of those old timey ones that you put like from like the early 1900s, where you would like put it in the thing and then like a Judas Priest razor blade type of thing. Yeah. And people are offended by it because they think like it invokes like mental health and suicide, and it's just sort of like again getting back to like that sort of 6 degrees of problematic, where it's like, let's take a thing that on its own, because here's the thing. So Gene Simmons from Kiss, he had a bass that was in the shape of a giant axe,
right?
so so it's just sort of like, yeah, whatever, it's rock, it's dangerous, it's edgy, it's cool, whatever. It's like
Yeah.
the name of the guy is Machine Gun Kelly. Like, the machine gun's fine, but we got some serious problems with the
Hey,
razor blade.
speaking of the mafia, right there,
Yeah,
Machine
exactly.
Gun
Yeah,
Kelly, the Irish mobster, I believe, right?
I think so.
Machine Gun Kelly,
That sounds like such a mob.
mobster. I was back when it was like, yeah, Machine Gun Kelly was a George Machine Gun Kelly. Yeah, he was a mobster back in, he died. He lived from 1900 to 1954, so it's like the 40s, like that very like 20s to 40s. Yeah, that's awesome. That's such a cool name.
Yeah.
I think I like Machine Gun Kelly because I would be him. Like if I was an artist, like full of tattoos, like that's who I would want to be. Like you're cool with both, like the rap crowd and the rock crowd.
Yeah.
Like that. I just think like if I was 14, he would be like my favorite person.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'll read. This is from Loudwire. A couple of accounts on X shared promo photos of the platform a few days ago, including the State of the Scene podcast account and Metal Burb, who wrote, I saw MGK. I know MGK sucks and people don't like him, but what's up with the guitar being a razor? It's almost like it's glorifying self-harm. Schecter, man, the scene has problems with mental health, and making tools that can cause self-harm look cool is actually super lame. Also, the guitar is hideous, but that's just obvious. And it's like, what are you talking? What scene has like rock scene? That the rock scene has a problem with mental health? Like, I don't know what he's talking. And like mental health has just become like this sort of catch-all thing.
Yeah, it's a catch-all.
Like like another one of these sort of like woke buzz terms, where it's just like I had a stressful time at work. I'm just going through like a mental health crisis right now because today was just like stressful. Yeah, it's like, okay, like let's focus on actual conditions and not just you had a bad day or some shit. Like.
Well, it's the wellness industrial complex.
Yeah,
I didn't coin that term. That's like it's all part of it. That's like probably a big cornerstone of it.
Yeah,
you can say anything now. Like a lot of athletes and some probably legit. I don't know. So like I don't want to do this interview because of my mental health, or I don't want to like perform or because of mental health. And it's like, okay, fine. Like, yeah, that's part of it. And there is an argument to, like, for instance, I'm an attorney. Like there is such thing as burnout. You like, and we've addressed that. And it's like a good thing, right? Like but it actually is, what's it called? An ounce, was it an ounce of something, a pound of cure? What's that term? Not preparation, but anyway, it's like you don't want to burn out, like your mental health for performers and athletes and lawyers and doctor, like surgeons. Like I want my surgeon to have good mental health. Like I don't want him being super stressed out. But it is becoming catch-all where it's like anything can just be, well, this is like glorifying mental health issues, which or like self-harm. Like that's another thing. Like self-harm is one of these buzzwords where, like, first of all, I love that you point that out because I totally overlooked that. Like his name is fucking Machine Gun. Like his name is Machine Gun Kelly. Like that, but of course, and it's like it's almost one of those things where if he does put MGK, but like maybe because he has kind of rebranded to MGK that people forget what that stands for. Like those aren't his initials,
right?
Like his name is Colson Baker. Like his name is Machine Gun Kelly, named after an Irish mobster who I'm sure was no pacifist.
Right,
so,
exactly.
So yeah, and then getting back to just like the second you sent me this, I'm like, oh, I know what Joe's gonna think about this. It's like, yeah, man, this is rock and roll. Like this is punk. This is like pop punk at least. Like it's supposed to be edgy.
Yeah.
It's supposed, like, I'm not saying it should go back to this, but punk rockers used to wear swastikas.
Right.
I'm not saying they should be doing that, but like they used to not give a shit. They used to do that on purpose to not because they like had white supremacist beliefs, solely because it was provocative and transgressive.
Right. Yeah.
And
it's like, rock and roll has for decades has been like pissing off like politicians, religious leaders, teachers, parents, and it's like, well, but don't bother the the mental health industrial complex though. Like,
yeah,
that's the one group you can't cross the line with.
It's very well. First of all, I do think the guitar is kind of ugly. Like it's hard to even the design. It's even hard to tell that is a razor blade, but it is. It says it. I'm just kind of reading some of the comments here. but a lot of people are defending him. Or is that himself? Oh, that's him. Blondon
Yeah.
is him. Okay. Yeah, I think this is more of like what you're saying. You can stretch anything. Like you can use this catch-all to criticize kind of anything that even gives you like the smallest opening. And I think that first comment says it the best. It's like people don't like him. I know, and I was reading up a little bit about him. I could really give a shit less about like celebrity beefs. Like I never like just like I don't really care about who's dating who or even really married to who.
Yeah.
Because I don't like these are our gladiators. Like I don't really care what like I care that they entertain and they put on a good show.
Sure.
If they can play music, if they can act, you know, whatever. Like I don't. So he does have a lot of like beefs with people like G-Eazy, who went to my alma mater for
Nobody
law
cares.
school. Not
Yeah.
he went to Loyola New Orleans. And like Eminem and Corey Taylor, who I do love. Like, I love Corey Taylor. Don't you know who that is?
Yeah, Slipknot.
Yeah, Slipknot. So it sounds like he might like he might piss off a lot of people. I think part like that's the Corey Taylor beef was Corey Taylor didn't name him, but was clearly talking about him like I don't like people failing in other industry, like other genres, and then just kind of coming to rock.
Yeah.
And then they had beef or whatever. So I do think people just don't really like him, but I like he was dating like Megan Fox.
That's right, yeah.
He's very good looking. Like people are always gonna kind of whenever they can like shit on those kind of people.
Yeah.
I think him changing genres. But then I was watching on YouTube, like he had a rap song out, like so I don't know if he does both. He does that kind of rap that I really don't like. Like I don't even know how to really describe it, but I think it's kind of crappy.
Right.
Like mumbly Corey, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
That's really it, but it's not very appealing.
Right.
So yeah, and then artistically, this is just like typical pearl clutching, which is very weird. And again, it's not like you could rip on this saying this is ugly because it is kind of ugly, but like the scene as problem with mental health and making tools that can cause self-harm look cool is actually super lame. Like
that comment coming from a heavy metal guy is super lame. It's like,
yeah,
what's up with you defending mores now? It's like,
yeah,
you know, from a genre that's known for you know violating them. Like, what the hell's going on? Like now you're putting guardrails on what can and can't be explored in rock music. Like, it's so stupid.
Yeah, someone goes MGK is lame, but razor blades are iconic and cool, and has Judas Priest.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I like his defense here. So he tweeted about this.
Yeah.
Where is it? Here it is. I'll never explain my art because true art is conversational and always up for interpretation. But I will say, most of you constantly interpret it wrong and then blame me for your version of what you think my art is. Ultimately, I'm sad at how people perceive me in general. Peace. I mean, I think he makes some good points here. Like, yeah, you know, true art is up for debate and interpretation. I don't know, you know, what the razor blade means to him. I don't know if there's a point to it or if it's just because it looks cool. Either way, I'm in favor of his freedom to do that. It's like, even if it is just because it looks cool, it's like, yeah, well, rock and roll's been doing that for decades. Let's put spikes on our leather jackets because it looks cool. Like,
yeah, but not bobby pin, like the pins, the tatters. Like, I mean, that's very like punk too, like heavy metal, like that imagery. I mean, you could go down like there's so little of that anymore. It feels like because everything is so commercial. Yeah, like and not that those also didn't used to be commercial. Like they made a lot of money. I mean, like Led Zeppelin had private jets and shit, right? Like so it's not that, but it's also like it felt like they were doing what they wanted to do, and having and that appeal isn't as commercially like viable anymore. So now everyone has to kind of be the same, where it's like, I don't know, like Green Day, it would be like my best. Like it's just edgy enough where it like, I think Green Day sucks. But like it's just like criticizing the government enough and just, you know, the imagery, like the bloody heart with American Idiot. And, but it's not like anything really. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say exactly, but it like you can only go so far, or else you just become like. Honestly, I thought you like now you get criticized by that side, by like I guess what you call the left.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I know what you're talking about, like that sort of hot topic aesthetic where it's a little edgy. It's sort of like bubblegum goth or something, where it's just sort of like
bubblegum goth is good. I mean, man, I love horror punk. It's one of my favorite genres. Like, I love the campiness of it. I don't know, like if we took out, I guess that's not a good example because I'm just trying to think like the skulls and vampires and zombies and all that shit.
Yeah.
Like that's like it's literally horror punk, but I guess maybe because it's so fake, it's like a razor blade's real. Like he's not. I don't know. Like you can use a razor blade for a lot of stuff. Like it's not just self-harm.
Right.
Like,
And also, like, you can kill yourself with almost anything. So I don't know why, like, this is so like, what if I made like a guitar in the shape of a pillow? So, well, they use that to smother old people. How dare you?
My mom died from a pillow.
Exactly. So yeah, I don't know. It's getting back to like the mental health thing. So this is a point that our good friend Alma Cook made a while back on Twitter, where she's I hope I'm not misinterpreting this, but I thought she made a good point, which is that a lot of sort of self-improvement, mental health type stuff that's become so popular in recent years is pretty much just hedonism that's just kind of couched in sort of like it's good for you. Like I've seen so much of this where it's like, if your friend is going through a tough time and asks you for help or advice, it's okay to tell them no because you're not in the right headspace. And it's like, whatever happened, like sacrifice, whatever happened, like, hey, I'm going through but yeah, I'll help you, buddy. Yeah. It's like so much is like, I'm just like going through a tough time right now. I'm just not in the right, like, I'm just not fully aligned right now. So I can't really help you. And it's like, no, you're just too fucking lazy. You're to help someone. Like there's just so much that it's okay to take a day off and just like, binge watch Game of Thrones and eat a tub of ice cream. It's okay to do that once a week, where it's just sort of like you're just glorifying hedonism, which I think is much worse for your mental health long term.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is like just allow wellness is just like neglect your obligations and responsibilities and just like treat yourself. Don't worry about being in shape, or it's fat shaming, like body image, like body positivity. Don't worry about like working harder, right? Like the system is always going to cut you down. Like you don't have, and again, I know it's like a very bootstrapsy thing. That's not what I'm saying. But like you should have like goals that aren't just Netflix and like aren't just like like watching it, like catching up, like I don't know, like you could have other passion. It's usually, it feels like it's not usually like, oh, go like start that novel you've talked about doing, or learn another language, or a volunteer at the animal shelter or food bank or something. It's always like, no, there's like you do you, like do exactly what you want to do.
You're enough. And I see you and I hear you. And it's
don't like worry about, don't try and have a family or try and like meet like the love of your life or a partner. It's like just sleep around, just do whatever feels best. Don't worry about repercussions, anything like that. It's very, I mean, the perfect example is and it's so nefarious because you could see you sponsoring the show, like Nabisco sponsored something at your hometown of Los Angeles, like the public schools, where it's like there's no such thing as junk food. It's like yes, there fucking is. But like no, there's no such thing as junk food. It's like it's just food, and it's all, this is like white supremacy, and it's like no, Nabisco is sponsoring this because they sell junk food. And it's really creepy to me. And again, that's part, and you might think like, well, what, like, how does that tie into this? It's like, but it's the wellness industrial complex. Like, no, it's okay to just eat like shit because it makes you feel good.
Exactly. And it's funny because like, like so much of this stuff that is become so pervasive and like the sort of identitarian woke scene now is like it starts off in so many of these ideas start off from like I'm in general agreement with that, but then it always goes off into some crazy thing. So with the self-love and the mental health stuff, it's like I'm actually generally in favor of destigmatizing depression or anxiety. And I think that we should be more open about these things, and we should, try to democratize resources for people. There have always been people who've suffered from these things, but maybe they were embarrassed or ashamed by it. So no, you don't have to be ashamed or embarrassed because you suffer from something. But it's like it goes from that into like it's okay to be who you are.
It's enabling
the way you are. Exactly. Yes.
It's enabling. There's a lot of enabling going on where it's like you're actually doing a disservice to the person that you care about, because then they're like missing out on life events. They're they're not being good partners. They're not being good siblings or good friends or whatever that, because it's like, oh, they're not in the right headspace. Their mental health, like, you need it. Like there needs to be a balance.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought of an idea I thought of something when you were saying that, but I just forgot. But anyway, So back to Machine Gun Kelly.
Yeah.
I think that the guitar is kind of, I don't know. It seems like if this wasn't like the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. But then again, like maybe this is just a few loud voices, and who really cares? Like,
this could very well have just been like a slow news day at Loudwire, but it came across my
it might have been.
Just a handful, because like the people who are complaining, it's I'm not, I've never heard of them, so it could just be, 1 or 2 days of a handful of idiots looking for something to be offended by. But yeah, I mean, I think it is part of like this new trend that we've been talking about for since we started, which is just like, let's be offended by something. Let's find a way to connect this to something that is problematic in some way. And let's defang something that has always had fangs, something that where it's like, the edginess and the danger of it has always been its main appeal. In this case, it's rock music. And it's like, you want to suck all the life and energy out of this.
Yeah, really, man. Like, isn't that like, I don't know. That's like part of the fun of it.
Yeah.
And hasn't that just been debunked time and again? This whole like, oh, you listen to this music, like with even like the Columbine shooters.
Yeah.
Like, because they listen to Marilyn Manson, they shot their school. Like, I don't think there's not correlation there.
No.
Or I mean it's causation. There's not causation there of like, oh yeah, these like 16-year-olds are going to listen to kind of the not poppy, but like popular, darker music with darker themes. I feel like Outkast, it doesn't mean that like all of them are like they turn to school shooters.
Right.
Like,
yeah. And the handful of cases when somebody ostensibly acted out, something that was depicted in an artistic form, I blame that person. I don't blame the artist. That person was not sane enough to differentiate between reality and fantasy. I might have brought this up before, but I heard about an interview that Alfred Hitchcock gave in the early 1960s, right after Psycho came out. And I guess, around that time, a man in real life stabbed his mom to death. And the night when the police caught him, they interrogated him, and they found out that he had watched Psycho the night before he killed his mom. And so somebody brought it up in an interview with Alfred Hitchcock, saying, so how do you feel about the possibility that your movie may have inspired this copycat crime in real life? And then Hitchcock responded very well. He said, we don't know what goes on in the mind of a killer. Maybe my movie was the thing that set him off, or maybe a glass of milk was the thing that set him off. We don't know what goes on in the mind of an insane person. And he's right. It's like, maybe my movie inspired him, but if he was already crazy enough to kill his own mom, it's like, like anything can set him off. He could use anything to justify that.
Yeah, man. Speaking of which, totally, like that happened in the town where my parents live, like this like Sleepy Shore community, not sleep during summer. It's very, very busy. But, a smallish city right on the water. And this guy killed his mom and cut her head off.
Jesus Christ.
And like a mentally ill guy.
Yeah.
I doubt he watched Psycho the night before. I doubt anything that he could. I'm sure he wasn't even. I mean, it was horrific, but I read the report. Yeah. I read the covering, and it is like that's not the kind of shit that you expect to go on in this town.
Right.
Yeah.
With like Manson being inspired by the Beatles to start a cult, it's like, he was already nuts. Like, you don't need to like.
Wait, what do you? The Manson family.
Yeah, the Manson family.
Oh,
Yeah,
the
we
Manson
talked about Helter
family.
Skelter, the Beatles song. He supposedly heard lyrics.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're big, the Beatles violent, which is like the most like you can do it with anything. Same with that was the example I was thinking of. I'm glad you said that, because another example of that is like the guy who shot Ronald Reagan, like read Catcher in the Rye.
Oh.
And it's like that like really, unlike Hitchcock, that like really messed with Salinger.
Yeah.
That really messed with him, thinking that someone would use his beloved book for violence. And I think it was like more than one person, but it's like, no, that was just a popular book.
Yeah.
This guy was nuts.
Yeah.
He was going to find any reason to shoot Ronald Reagan. Right. Because he was nuts. Yeah. He's out now. What's his name? He like makes music. I always forget his name. Oh crap.
Machine Gun Kelly.
Machine Gun. No. Reagan, he took a bullet though, which was kind of badass. Reagan shooter. I always forget this guy's name. John Hinckley Jr.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
John Hinckley Jr. It's like, yeah, he read Salinger, he read Catcher in the Rye, and shot Reagan. It's like Catcher in the Rye is like the least violent, but it has some like dark undertones, but it's very like has nothing to do, like Psycho. That's the closest. It's like that, because in Psycho he does kill his mom, right?
Yeah.
Or does his mom just die and he takes her persona, or he kills her? I can't remember.
I think
it's implied he kills her.
Yeah, it's implied that he killed her. Yeah.
So I mean, that's the closest, if there's gonna be one, closest causation. But like Catcher in the Rye, the Beatles, like Marilyn Manson was gonna create his death cult no matter what. Yeah, but nothing to do with the Beatles.
Like I listened to a Beatles song and they were, and like I picked up messages about an impending race war. It's like, no, you're just nuts. It's not the Beatles' fault. It's you.
Do you know who I love? Speaking of the Beatles, is John Lennon's son.
Oh yeah,
on Twitter, he's great. Yeah.
I love that guy, man. He's great. Sean Lennon,
Sean Lennon Ono, or Sean Ono, like I'm like, holy shit, that's such proof of like, just because like liberal parents aren't just gonna make liberal kids. So you couldn't get a more liberal couple. Bullshit liberal, but
he doesn't even strike me as like conservative. He just seems like an old school sort of like hippie liberal type. He doesn't come off as like a modern progressive. He just
I wouldn't say he's conservative. I wouldn't say that, but he's definitely not. I would say he's like this, what we say, like heterodox type thing, like very questioning the establishment. Quite like, I think he questioned a lot of the COVID stuff.
Yes. Mainstream media stuff.
Yeah, like, I don't know what, like, because that doesn't have a. That's what like Bridget Festive says, like politically homeless. Like that politics doesn't have a home. Like doesn't have a party necessarily. Some of it you do with the Republicans, some with the Democrats a little, but he's very he's very anti-identitarian, very anti-COVID shit, like Dr. Fauci. Yeah. And I think he's sweet. Like I think it's very cool. And at first I was like, wait a minute. Yeah. This is John Lennon's son. Yeah. I like didn't put it together at first.
Yeah. I love him, and I love that he's able to like poke holes in a lot of the narrative that's being forced on us, but he does it in a way without coming off as like crude or like overly like he's very good at sort of like very calmly pointing out the hypocrisy or the lack of logic and the stuff that's being spoon fed to us. He's great.
He's not brash at all. Like he's very Sean Ono Lennon.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
Yeah, man,
I just added him to my Crit Fighter list. So
I
call him
a good one. Yeah, he's cool. I thought he was just like with someone famous, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm just scrolling through here. I guess it doesn't matter. But yeah, he's cool. He's a Crit Fighter. Yeah, we'll do Crit Fighters next week or soon. I don't know. Is there anything you want to talk about?
Nah, I think this is. I think we're good.
All right.
I think we said everything that needs to be said. What's up?
Oh, let's do. So we set up. About the Patreon, but hold on. Don't change that dial. We have a what we're gonna call Buy Us a Beer. if you love us, because we love you, but you're not ready to commit to the Patreon, understandable. No worries there. You can do a one-time donation to TRM at the link that's on YouTube, right, Joe, and on Twitter and Instagram, maybe the link tree, all that stuff. Just to show your support. We love you, and we'd appreciate that. If you do want to join the Patreon, we have one with merch, different tiers, sticker, all the way to sweatshirt. You get mug, t-shirt. You can get my books on there for signing up for even the lowest tier. You can get ebooks. Just email me or contact any of the social medias. It gets to me or Joe. And show your support. Oh, and like and subscribe.
And also head to our Twitter account and look. There's a little something there. We sold our souls.
Oh, we did. Oh, I forgot to say we sold our souls. Yeah, we did.
Here's a lighter.
So it did. So we did sell our souls, and that's because we think it'll grow the show. We wouldn't do it for any other reason, but you can. We'll be open about it. You can, if you get the blue check, you can watch the episode on Twitter. And I've learned with social media, the less links someone has to click, the more likely they are to engage. So now, if you scroll past TRM on your feed, we'll just start playing it. You'll hear our beautiful voices and those of our guests, and maybe you'll stick around. So that's why we did it.
Yeah. So stay reckless, everyone.
Stay reckless. Fight the crits.